And there he is, the Moss Man. And let's take a closer look at him for shits and giggles. So here's the back, and he's got his Moss Owl. This is how you know it's the CGI 2021 Moss Man and not Revelation Moss Man who got killed by Skeletor, and not the original Moss Man or the Beast Man. The Beast Man repaint, as I call it, Beast Moss Man in the old days. And this is the Moss Man that never appeared in the cartoon at all, but he was supposed to appear in season 4. However, he appears in a Scholastic kids book, little kids novel. Okay, so there he is. That is the Moss Man. Let me properly. It's not easy to set this up to where you can see me, but I do my damnedest. Now, that was not easy to get a hold of. I had to go through eBay, but not just eBay, I had to go through Australia. And Australia, they charge a lot. They charge like, if I had to really be honest, I think it's like 39 something. So almost $40. $40 plus shipping was 25. So about 60, when you think about $68.60, um, Australia, like Canada, has a higher US dollar. So just think of it in terms of when you're converting, it's more like Australian dollars and Canada dollars, Canadian dollars are higher than US dollars. So it took me a while, but this figure, um, this was the best I could do. I'm gonna also mention the Toy Huntress because I know she collects these series as well. So I'm gonna mention the Toy Huntress in the description because what happened was, well, I swear on my Toy Huntress, I swear on my channel, it was total bullshit because this is what happened. Well, we'll get into it in a minute, okay? But first, I want to, I have some bullet points. I want to talk a little bit about this, okay? Um, Titus and Megator were foreign figures. This is, a long time ago, way back in 87, 88. Okay. Titus and Megator are the two big giants that in the timeline occur before. Originally, I think it was supposed to be all in Preternia. And I think they rewrote it in the encyclopedia to be closer to Prince Adam's time. So they were closer to Prince Adam He-Man's time than Preternia, but that's a whole other thing. These figures came out they came out not here in the US, but overseas. So if you were in Europe in 88, you were a kid, you were lucky to get a hold of those two giant figures. They were like, what, a foot tall or 10 inches tall or whatever they were. But they were never advertised and they were never released here in the US. You were not able to see these figures at all uh, unless somebody told you, some bastard told you, I know, mate, I'm going, I'm a tourist here. Oh, you know they made these giant figures? No, I didn't. What do you mean? They're giant He-Man figures? Like, that's the only way you would know. Unless you went to a He-Man action figure club or some foreigner told you about it, you'd never know because there was no internet. There was no newsletter, nothing. Mattel would never want you to know that there were other figures that were never here but went somewhere else. I remember reading in Wizard magazine, the 90s magazine, the 2000s magazine that had, all kinds of comic book, Wizard was the place to go when you wanted information. And it was like our personal internet on paper before the internet even took off, before the World Wide Web took off. And it showed the Riddler from the Superpowers team. The Riddler was just like a repainted Hal Jordan. So if you wanted to repaint Hal Jordan, you could. But Toy Biz had a Riddler figure from the DC Comics superheroes line. My first action figures were probably, after Fisher Price was Masters of the Universe. I also got Power Lords, Mask, the car that with the gull wings, like the DeLorean, and You had the different little figures. Some GI Joe, Thundercats, Transformers, GoBots. Okay. Um, my sister collected the Robotech Macross Saga, some of the little figures that were like die-cast metal, and when they re-released them in the late '90s, they were plastic. Um, I remember Clark Kent from the Superpowers team and Mumra, and like even green spacesuit Earthworm Jim or the Nerfles. Those little Nerfle characters with the where you interchange the heads. They had a mail in figure. There were figures you had to mail in to get. I think there was a glow in the dark Batman that you had to send for, but I couldn't find that commercial. I can't find that commercial. There have been mail-in figures that you had to send for. You get 4 UPC symbols. Sergeant Slaughter, the original Sergeant Slaughter figure. You had to clip out the UPC figures, and then you mail it in, right? Or I'm not sure. Yeah, you had to send in those UPC codes, and you get the figure. I think the first time I did not get the figure was Han Solo in a Stormtrooper outfit. That was made by Kenner, not Hasbro now, but Kenner back then, back in the '90s. So I did not get the figure. So I lost my UPC symbols. Oh well. So there are rare figures. There are rare variants. I have a Riddler figure from Batman Forever with no paint on the leg. I think I have a Dr. Claw action figure from Inspector Gadget. I have a character from Mucha Lucha, Living Large Ricochet, that got discontinued. I knew I had a funny feeling because of the nature of the action figure, it would get discontinued or recalled. So I've had rare figures before. Um, when I think of rarer figures like Keldor was a Comic-Con exclusive, but you could see all these figures I'm describing, except for the first ones like Titus and Megator. The mail-in figures, Keldor from San Diego Comic-Con, that was $20, is now 10 times that much. You could get a hold of, if you were persistent enough, you could get a hold of it, okay? Even the ones today on Mattel Creations, if you get your ass up about an hour, half an hour before the time, so if it's like 9 p.m. Pacific and 12 noon Eastern time, if you got your ass up before 9 o'clock Los Angeles time, you could get the figure that you're ordering. Like with Lady Slither and the V Friend Skeletor and Skeletine, or whatever it is, the little skeleton. You can get those if you were persistent, if you were early enough. You had to click on the little find the road sign in the puzzle, and then your order would come in. Your pre-order would go in. So there was Keldor, but like the Keldor was part of the 2000X He-Man Masters of the Universe line. The cartoon was good. I liked the cartoon from 2002. Probably my most favorite. You had the original series. You had the space series, which I like a little bit of, and which they should go back to really, explore that space era. And then I even saw pictures of a 1992 Skeletor figure, with this Skeletor armor thing, and it was like it kind of predated Skeleton Warriors, so we see a little bit of '90s He-Man really in there. But the 2002, then there was other ones, but 2002 was my favorite. You had Val Staples' comic book series, you had the figures, and you had the cartoon. But people, I think they stopped. I think they have regulations now with cartoons selling toys. So, but I think back then they still wanted to sell action figures. Mattel saw as a way to make more cash, and they got these guys. Now, I do remember a story about Todd McFarlane going to Mattel and not having an agreement with Mattel. So Todd McFarlane made his own toys called Todd Toys, and then McFarlane Toys. So I wonder what he was going to make. Was he going to make Masters of the Universe? Because then the Four Horsemen eventually did, and great figures. If Toy Huntress, if you have those figures, great figures. Um, and I collected almost every one except for the weird variants. I never collected the weird variants. I did get Battle Sound He-Man and Battle Sound Skeletor and all those figures. Great. Never got the play sets, but I did get, I don't even think I got the accessories. I don't think I got one accessory or play set from that series, but I did get the figures. Um, and what happened was kids were not buying the 2000X He-Man. So in Mattel's perspective, they thought, oh, well, I guess nobody cares, right? So they canceled the toys were stopping because nobody was buying them. So the toys were going to get canceled. The cartoon was canceled, and then Val Staples' comic book series was canceled. Also, partly because he was creating his own characters like Illumina, which I remember very well. Then, and this is according to Val Staples, and I think I believe this shit because this is what he said happened, okay? According to Val Staples, way back, does anybody remember when Val Staples said that Mattel wanted to own his website? To own it, okay? To own the website and take it away from him. Like 7/8 of the audience was like, you ain't doing that shit. And then Mattel pulled back. But because the He-Man website they had for their stuff was like very little, very sparse. Like they didn't give a shit. So Val Staples gave a shit. And he made it a site for the fans. Now it's an org site. It's currently there. And it was there for the fans. It wasn't there to sell products. Matty Collector at that time was there to sell products. I think it's still there. So you have Matty Collector and then Mattel Creations. But org was there for information. So people were pissed. So they backpedaled. Eventually, He-Man.org turns into a forum site. I don't know what's going on. But it was the place where you and I have the power, right? And then some time passed. And then Revelation came out. After you had the origin, after you had the classics, and a lot of those figures are worth a lot of money. So you had to be part of Club Eternia, which I never was. Regrettably, I was not part of Club Eternia. And Club Eternia was probably was predates. You had to. I don't know if you had to pay for a membership. Maybe it was a one flat rate membership a year. I don't know what it was, but it predates Mattel Creations. You had to have an account. You had to log in. I think you had to pay to subscribe to it, and then you would get your chance to buy figures. So Revelation came along. The cartoon was shit. As somebody once said, He-Man defended Castle Grayskull from Skeletor in 200 episodes and won. Tila defended it for 5 episodes and lost. So they were trying to make it. It wasn't that. It's not that girls cannot be warriors too. She-Ra proves that wrong. Tila proves that wrong. Evil Lyn proves that wrong. It's that they were trying to make it all about the females and kick them and tell the men to shut up. You saw what happened in Revelation. Now, Huntress loved it. I like the animation and I like the look and the feel of it, but the story was just insulting to He-Man. Revolution tried to fix it, but it paled in comparison to the comic books. The DC comic books from 2013 or 2014, all the way up to, I think, 2016. And it was much better. It was way better than what most people would expect. The DC comics where She-Ra comes back as Despera, and there's a whole storyline with King Hiss and King Randor, and then defeating Hordak, and peace returns. Tila and He-Man get kissed and get married, and I thought that was great. But yeah, so Masterverse, the action figures are very good. Most of the figures are good. I do have Andra. I don't mind Andra being black. Andra doesn't do much of anything, to be honest with you. So the figures are very good. I think Origins predated Revelation. So you have Origins, which were the same vintage figures but re-released, brand new, maybe a little bit different, new coat of paint, new details on it. Um, so Mattel Creations, I got a couple of figures. Um, and they're still making Masterverse, but now they're calling it, well, they call it Masterverse, but they call it Revelations. Now they're calling it Masterverse to have figures all across the board, which I think is fine. Um, but I will not be participating in that, and I'll get to it in a minute. Eternia. This was a set I was looking forward to, but they had to make it a Kickstarter, which was suspicious to me. And then they had to go and make it too expensive. Now, it might be, maybe that's the way it's supposed to be, but I don't think so. I don't think so because, you see what McFarlane does. We'll get to that in a moment, but $600 for that fucking playset? And what they could have done is instead of doing a fucking Kickstarter, because they knew people were going to buy, they knew adults. And I don't call myself a man-child. Something feels a little retarded about that, okay? But we won't insult those groups. It's not their fault. Their mothers were stupid. They could have sold sections of the play set. Here's in one box Grayskull Tower, in another box Viper Tower, and another box the rail set, with separate little beams to hold the rail, to hold the figures. And then the Eternia Tower. They could have done that. Also, just the way that figures are not re-released. Now, I know people were having problems with Rock On and Lady Slither. I have my Lady Slither has two left hands on the figure, so setting for trying to order figures is hard, because even if you don't get to the 9 o'clock deadline, what is one to do? They could release a second print, like comic books. You get a second printing, a third printing. They could have done that. You're trying to save money, Mattel. Why don't you just re-release the same figures, maybe in a different printing or different design, to kind of keep that weird aftermarket steady? Because the aftermarket is a bastard, isn't it? I will not be returning to Mattel Creations or Amazon. I may, and I may not, go to eBay or Swap Meets or Frank & Sons, which is still in California, I think, or garage sales or yard sales, whatever, to find my figures if I want to. If I really want, or I could 3D print them. 3D print He-Man. I could do that. I could 3D print the figures if I go to some website and find it there, if I really want to. Other than that, I'm retired from that. Mossman was the last figure in this series. Now, Mattel could have done the right thing and released it here, knowing that this figure was already seen on a Scholastic book, knowing that this figure was already well known and popular, because their plan was not to make a season 4 of CGI He-Man. Their plan was not to make more series, though they should have. Rob David, to be fair, made the stories pace too quickly. That's just my perspective. He could have slowed down a bit. But other than that, they were never given another chance after Hordak appearing, with Kevin Conroy doing the voice, which somebody else can do the voice of Hordak. It's fine. It's, the show must go on. We love Kevin Conroy. It sucked what happened at Suicide Squad, but the show must go on, I say. But they didn't even try to do that. They brought back one show, the one that everybody did not like, and then they said, that's it. And we're going to just go into hiding for the next 10 years or so. Maybe in 10 years I will flip-flop and take a look at what Mattel's got, if they decide to change their ways. But it makes me sick to my stomach because they decided to release this figure, Moss Man, overseas and not tell anybody. It's not that the figure is rare and it was expensive. By the way, Moss Man was the cheapest I could get this. At 39 bucks plus $25 shipping from another country, that was generous. Some of them went on eBay for 100 bucks or more. And I did not tell anybody, nobody. I didn't tell anyone here or any social media because I did not want to lose that bid. I bid on this figure. A figure that most people ignored and most people didn't care about because they say, well, it's not the Origins He-Man or Classics He-Man or Vintage or Masterverse. Who cares? I do, because it was still part of He-Man. It's like the Gladiator. Remember Voltron? You had Lionbot Voltron and Vehicle Voltron and Gladiator. Oh, it's Gladiator Voltron. Who cares? A lot of people do, because in the aftermarket, that bastard's worth a fuck of a lot of money. And it's a cool variant. I like that it's stacked on top of each other. But it's a weird Voltron. It's the weird ugly stepbrother of the Voltron family that people cared about now in the aftermarket. And this may happen for Mossman. It may not. But just to be sure, partly as a collector and partly because I like this design. Actually, I like the anime. Always like the anime design of these figures. He's even more muscular than He-Man, right? So I decided to get a hold of this figure for collector's purposes, and I do have vehicles. Like I do have the what is it? The Snake Throne, that thing, right? And the Wind Raider, and Castle Grayskull. So I wanted to get this figure and complete the collection. I don't have He-Man or Skeletor variants other than a couple of them, and then the big one, right? You've all seen those. But they did the fans dirty and released the last figure, the one figure left in the collection. They said, nope, we're going to release it in Europe or Italy. We're going to release it, or Australia and India. It was available in India. On Amazon's India site and Amazon's Australia site, you could find those figures, or even the UK, but they don't ship to US. eBay does. So that was the bastard part. That was really bad. That was a really bad show, Mattel. What you did was dirty. And you know the aftermarket is brutal. You have to pay maybe up to 10 times as much for a figure. Now, in the end, all this stuff doesn't matter. It's the electricity, it's the water, it's the food that take care of us. We got to think about those things, right? But mankind, we need our toys, we need our video games, we need our luxuries a bit. But this figure would have been selling for like $10 to $15. If Mossman was here, okay, in a fair amount, it would have been under 20 bucks just to buy it. But I had to pay more than 3 times as much if you're counting the shipping and stuff. That's bullshit. More than 3 times as much. Now, you may say, why does this matter to me? It doesn't matter. When Origins, because one day, here's what's going to happen, okay? Whether it's Origins or Masterverse, you're going to see figures coming up, okay? Now, the figures coming up, I'm going to admit right now, it's a good lineup. It's okay. It's average to above average. Most of those figures are coming out in July. Now, if they decide to make a similar roster for this and then say, okay, there's this figure that you see. Now, Mega J is going to point this out. Toy Habits is going to point this out. Hebro, Mr. Home Arcade, they're going to point out, you know this figure you see here? I have not seen it. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? It went overseas and didn't tell anybody. Oh my God, this is the first time. No. This is the first time you are seeing this right now. I am making YouTube history by telling you that Mattel's a bunch of bastards and they will do this. Okay? Actually, the first time was in 88, but we didn't have internet. We did not have internet. Nobody could know that Titus and Megator were unavailable, except overseas. But I had been watching this figure since holidays. When someone posted it on Instagram, I was triggered. I said, where did you get that? Where did you get that? Maybe I'd like to buy one. How the hell did that happen? Now, McFarlane doesn't do that shit, as far as I know. And even if the figures go in the aftermarket is not brutal. Like, I think I saw a Malabolgia on Amazon for about $20. Some of those figures aren't worth that much, but they look good on your shelf. And I don't really care. He makes rare variants for contests. He'll make a he'll sign one to make a lot of money. Here's this signed edition of this Spawn from McFarlane Toys, and that's worth a lot. So he'll make a little margin for expensive variants. Other than that, Todd McFarlane wants everyone to enjoy his toys. And Todd McFarlane himself oversees the stuff. I lost 2 contests, but the figures are great. There are other figures from Entertainment Earth and stuff. You can look around. There's different toys from Japan, imports. But here in America, Todd McFarlane, the DC Comics line, that's the only good thing right now out of DC Comics. And I've been speaking for like almost 30 minutes, I think, but I just want to say my piece. So, if I may, we'll close it on this figure. And yeah, it's very disappointing. And I think that we have to do better as buyers, okay? I could easily go on Mattel Creations and buy the next figure, but I'm supporting Mattel, and I don't want to support them anymore. I want to support people who really care about the people buying the stuff. When you treat people like twats, like they don't have the power, we have the power to not buy your shit. We have the power to not do that. So, this is my last brand new Masters of the Universe video for a while, as far as action figures go. If I buy anything else, like let's say Despera, most likely I'm buying it off of eBay. I'm just not. And also, congratulations to Mr. Home Arcade for his Eternals Palace playset, which he paid almost $1,000 for. Jesus Christ, wouldn't be able to do it. I can't even get the Doom Tower going at the full size. So it sucks being a collector because you can't get exactly what you were hoping for. You try to get compromised. I guess I have to go to Lego playsets for playsets. That's it. So good journey, everyone. And now on to better things.